Hi, so as we look at my pamphlet on the 4 observations for the middle school art classroom, I have 4 observations that I'll be taking away from what I saw going into other people's classrooms. There are some really wonderful things, and there are some things that I wouldn't emulate personally in my own work. But the biggest thing that I realized going through all of this is that students really benefit from freedom, from play, from student-led ideation in the art classroom. Their work is more personal, they take more ownership in it, and they're just more invested in the entire process, whether they're artists or not. So the first one I want to look at is engaging students through imagination and play. This was a classroom I walked into that was just awesome. The way she pushed kids out of their comfort zones, really had kids explore what kind of questions to ask when looking at Ansel Adams' artwork, what kind of animals they imagined that might be there, what time of day, what kind of colors, what kind of sounds, what kind of smells even, and really had kids dive into the world of Ansel Adams photography. But by doing that, you kind of engage kids in that imagination and play, which seems to get a little bit lost sometimes in middle school students. That self-consciousness kicks in, and that willingness to play and take risks, especially in front of peers, is gone. So another way to support kids in their imagination and play in the art room is through supporting student ideas and inquiry. So I think a benefit of this in the classroom is to have kids be the ones who are leading the conversations and supporting their ideas wherever necessary or wherever available too. So if you're looking at art, if you're exploring different ways of making art, and kids come up with their own ideas, I think they should be fully supported. And even in one of the classrooms, the entire class engaged in this student's idea in a way to approach a problem, which is great, empowering students, taking yourself as the teacher out of the equation sometimes and letting students just lead their own learning is wonderful. Another thing to do is to spark ideation through guided questions. This kind of goes along with supporting student inquiry, but when kids aren't quite getting where they need to be going or need some help starting those questions, being a facilitator and guiding very open-ended questions that allow students to come up with individual ideas within that, whether looking at art. This is the classroom where they were doing a lesson on Kandinsky, and it was a very structured lesson. Students were asking some very interesting questions and weren't necessarily being heard, and I thought they were great ideas, great ways to explore Kandinsky's art. So taking those questions and being enough of an expert in what you're teaching to where you can steer that inquiry in what you're learning through student interests and what questions they are asking. The final observation I had taking away from these classrooms was how important self-reflection is for students and self-assessment is. In the art world, everything is kind of not universal, but it can all be a little relative. You know, what I see in art might not be what you see in art, and certainly might not be what a student sees in art. And so this is a big part of shifting the art assessment from being product to being process. The student knows the process. They know what they were thinking, why they made the decisions they did, what changes they made throughout their artwork. And that's not stuff that you see on the canvas at the end of the week. So student reflection, giving students a chance to reflect on their own process, on their own artwork, and then student self-assessment. You will have kids that will give themselves 100 on everything, and that's a time to have a conversation with that student about what it looks like to self-assess properly. But often students are going to be really great, and it's a good skill for them to be able to self-assess their artwork. This will give them practical skills in the real world, in other classrooms, and in life. So these are my 4 observations that I took away from my virtual field experience. And that's all. Thank you.